The Wicked King, Part 3. The boy felt it before he saw it. The air grew heavy, leaves quivered, though no wind stirred, and shadows stretched like living things. Then came the footsteps, measured, deliberate, the king's shadow closing in. He crouched behind the roots of a tree, heart racing. He had practiced for this, but no training erased the chill crawling up his spine. Mist drifted through the forest, then shaped itself into fingers of darkness. At the center stood the king, pale green, sharp, eyes glinting like cold steel. "You cannot run," the voice hissed, wrapping around him like smoke. Fear pressed close, but he felt more than fear. The hum of the forest, Amina's presence, and the courage of villagers slowly resisting. He was no longer the helpless boy by the river. The shadow struck and failed. The war, however, had only begun. Dawn crept pale over the village. The boy woke stiff and sweating, but alive. The hum of the forest lingered beneath his feet, steadying him. Beside him, Amina stared, already planning for the day ahead. She trained him in ways the forest could not, tracking signs, reading fear in faces, sensing the subtle spread of shadow. Together, they left markers on paths, whispered signals only they understood, and built a language of silent courage. Meanwhile, the king's shadow seeped into the village itself. Food went missing. Children grew afraid to step outside, and herbs withered in the healer's hands. The fear was quiet, creeping, and relentless. The boy and Amina studied its patterns. They saw how it whispered doubts, planting mistrust before striking openly. By the end of 2 weeks, he had changed. His body stronger, his senses sharper, his courage steadier. He was not just surviving now, he was preparing. The village moved with unease. Doors stayed shut, voices dropped low, and every step seemed watched. One morning, the hunter who had first saved him trembled while stringing a bow. His hands shook as though unseen eyes pressed against him. "It's stronger," the boy whispered. Amina nodded. "It plants fear before it strikes." Together, they pushed back with small acts. A word of courage, a shared glance, a child daring to walk to the river again. The boy began teaching chants and simple marks for protection, ways to recognize when the shadow pressed too close. Each act was small, but they added up. Slowly, the village stood taller, no longer bowing completely to fear. The boy woke before dawn, the hum of the forest steady beneath his feet. Amina watched the horizon with him, both knowing the shadow would not wait much longer. By mid-morning, groups of villagers gathered under their guidance. The boy showed them how to trace protective circles, chant quietly, and read the subtle signs of danger. They marked paths with signs, scattered herbs along edges of the forest, and built traps to confuse and slow the shadow's advance. When the sun dipped, the forest changed. A chill swept through the air, branches snapped without cause, and dogs barked endlessly. The king's presence pressed close, testing their resolve. Night fell thick and silent. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper a warning. The boy and Amina guided villagers into protective circles, steadying their breath and courage. Then the shadow struck. Darkness poured from the forest like smoke, curling through huts and over the ground. Fires flickered, smoke twisted into shapes that whispered. Dogs snarled, children cried, and hunters froze. The shadow reached for fear first, amplifying hesitation and doubt. But the boy stood firm. "Not today," he whispered. The villagers held together. Circles glowed faintly with strength. Chants filled the air, and the traps disrupted the shadow's flow. For the first time, the king's assault faltered. As dawn rose, the darkness pulled back. The village, shaken but standing, began to repair what was broken. They were no longer helpless. The boy felt the hum of the forest rise through him, steady, patient, and yielding. The king would return, but he was no longer just a child hiding by a river bank. He had grown, and he would not face the darkness alone. The shadow had struck fully and failed, but the war was far from over.